Welcome to Kid Cannon TV's Homegrown Fighter, where we follow the lives of elite fighters doing it the grassroots way. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon to be notified when we upload a new video. And follow us on social media at Kid Cannon TV.
What's up, guys? I'm Kidron Cannon, and I run this channel, all the homegrown fighter stuff that you've seen here. This is my buddy Vanard. The reason we're here is we were both Bryce's roommates for a long time, a few years, and he's one of our best friends. And I was actually supposed to be in Jacksonville right now with Bryce and with the team for UFC 249. But the UFC sent out an email last week to all the fighters, basically just locking it down. And like, if you're not UFC staff or a fighter or a licensed cornerman, which I could be, but he's gonna be better served with people who know what they're doing. So yeah, I didn't get to go down there. So I was really bummed. I was gonna be getting a lot of content, but I was like, you know what? We'll make the best of it. Vanard, obviously, Thug Nasty super fan like myself. Yeah. So what we decided was Vanard's gonna come up here and we're just gonna watch the fight tonight and just talk about Bryce, hang out. That's exactly right. So I guess the first thing we need to talk about with Bryce is like how we met him. And we both went to Harding University. That's where we met Bryce. What do you remember? Like, how did you meet Bryce?
So I met Bryce not the same time, but a little bit after I met you because we became roommates. That's how I met Bryce. You already knew him. You were cool with him. You went to room with him. And so I kind of met him like my first day in the dorms, and super cool dude, like just chill, like, yo, what up? You know, what's your name? You know, told him my name was Vanard, and he was like, Vern? I was like, Sure, yeah, you could call me that. He was like, does anybody call you? I was like, no, I guess you do now. So that was cool. And then that was it. And then we just lived together, and it's been cool ever since.
What was your first impression?
My first impression was, I kind of just went in, like, just kind of trying to figure out who he was. But he was like a really cool dude, like super like chill, got along with everybody, seemed like from the beginning. So I was just like, like I like this dude. He seems pretty cool. Yeah.
And so for me, I met Bryce a little bit before Vanard, but I was actually in a class with Bryce at Harding, and we were in a geology class, and he sat behind me, so I never really like saw him because he was like a couple rows back, but we had an assignment where we had to go to the library and get a box of rocks, minerals, and like memorize them. So we're both in there, and I see this dude in front of me in line. He has like an MMA shirt. He's got the cauliflower ears, and I've been like a huge MMA fan my whole life. So I was like, oh, this is interesting. I was like, hey, what's up, man? Do you fight? Like, do you train? He's like, yeah, I do a little bit. I fought. I was like, oh, dude, that's awesome. That's really cool. And we started talking a little bit, and he had a fight coming up. And I was like, well, And I started thinking about it. I was like, I make videos, and I'm making like films and documentaries and stuff. I was like, do you think I can make a video on you? He's like, yeah, sure, if you want to. He's like, I'm not very good. I'm kind of boring. Like, my teammate's way better than me. Like, you should film him instead.
Typical humble Bryce.
That's Bryce. Yeah. But I was like, I'm gonna film you because like we're about the same age, we're in the same class. I don't want to meet some random dude I've never like at your gym. I'd rather film you. So I documented his lead up to. It was actually a title fight for an amateur belt in Arkansas. And I filmed him. We were together pretty much every day for like a month straight. And I was filming him, and I put out the video 7-1. I think it's on this channel too, but that's how I met Bryce. And we just we became friends really quick.
Yeah, and I feel like that'll probably be the story with most people who would, hearing this, who like think about their first time meeting Bryce. It's just like, yo, like this dude is cool. He gets along with people so easily, man. And he's very well-rounded as far as like, like what he knows. Like he can really talk about anything with anybody. Yeah. So he's a real cool dude. I love Bryce, man.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think I've ever met anyone who didn't like him. Like even people who like have seen him on TV, like follow from afar, like everyone has a good impression of him. But when people meet him, they're like, man, he's so down to earth. He's just like, he's genuine. Like what you see is what you get. The thing that always impressed me, and you might have seen this too, is like at the Harding like calf, he knew all the people who like clean the dishes and did the cooks and everything. Like, he knows those people. Like those are the people he talks to.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, Bryce is cool with anybody and everybody.
Yeah, and so an interesting thing is the fact that he ended up at Harding, because it's a small conservative Christian school.
Right.
Bryce is not a Christian. He's not conservative in any way, but he ended up there. And we went, like, you came for football. I went because, it was, like, in line with my beliefs. I wanted to, like, study ministry and film and, like, have those Christian values and stuff. But Bryce ended up there in a really weird way because he grew up in Cabot, which is, like, 30, 40 minutes from Searcy. And his mom basically said, all right, you're out of high school. You're either moving out and supporting yourself, or if you want to go to college, like if you go to college, I will support you and I'll pay for you, you know, to live on campus and to study, but I want you to get a Christian education. And it's just so funny because he was training at Barada MMA in Cabot. Well, Barada moved up to Searcy. Like, what are the chances?
Right.
And his gym moved there. And it was right down the street from Harding. And his mom's like, I'll pay for you to go there and stay there. And he's like, all right, screw it. I'll go and suffer through school so that I can train MMA.
Yeah,
like
Bryce was never a fan of like school and like the whole, you know, higher education thing. But he did, and he was great at it. Bryce got like A's. Like he was a great student. Yeah. Amazing GPA. So you would think like, you know, you'd never imagine somebody who was like just not really a fan of school or college, like, killing it.
Yes.
But that just is a testament to show like who Bryce is.
Yeah.
Anything that he does, he's gonna do it 100% and do it right. Yeah. So it's amazing.
And that geology class that I met him in, it was funny because like there were a bunch of people failing the class. It was like really tough, like tricky, weird stuff you wouldn't have heard of before. But like the teacher gave us the information. You just kind of had to memorize it. And he did, and like he and I both, I'm pretty sure had like a 100 in the class. Like we both just nailed it, and he's really smart. Like if he wants to do something, he's going to do it well. If he doesn't want to do it, well, he's not going to do it.
He's just not going to do it, period.
Exactly. So that's like how we all met. So I met Bryce. We were finishing up a semester. We lived in different dorms, but then the next year coming back, I was going to be an RA, and I was going to be able to like choose my roommates and like figure it all out. And I was like, oh, I want to live with Bryce. That'd be really cool. And then you as well. I was like, we were friends. I was like, you guys are really cool. So I was like, let's all live together.
Yeah.
And it happened. So we all moved in. How would you describe Bryce as a roommate? Like, what did you think of him in terms of living together?
Bryce was, it was cool living with Bryce because, you know, it's either he was there or he wasn't. You know, it wasn't he was not like he was messy. It's not like, you know, I would be like, oh, well, Bryce is home. I have to change, you know, or go in my room, or kind of like, you know, like it was cool. When Bryce came home, it was like a great presence.
He brings energy, I feel like. He's just positive and fun. Like
he does. He's a really cool dude, and it was fun hanging out with Bryce, and it was even better having him as a roommate when I found out that he was a fellow Zombies player.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Call of Duty.
Yeah, Call of Duty.
Yep.
We would hop on. He told me that he played. And I'm just like, oh, okay, you play zombies. Like, you know, like people say they play zombies, but can you really play?
Yeah, yeah.
Until we got to playing, and I was just like, yo, this dude is the truth.
It was good. I'm terrible at it. Like, I hate it, but y'all were killing it.
Yeah, no, that was our thing, man. Like, the highest I've ever made it in zombies was with Bryce. Yeah. And I've never made it anywhere close. So and it was just me and him.
At first, we were in the dorm. Were y'all playing in the dorm, and then when we moved to the house, did y'all like keep playing, or did y'all start when we moved to the house?
You know what? I mainly remember it when we moved to the house. I think I knew that he played when we were in the dorms, but that was towards like the end of us being in the dorms. Once we moved in the house, that's when we really started playing. Yeah. And I was just like, oh, snap.
Yep. Yeah, so that's what I remember. Like, the main thing I remember, like, if you look at Bryce and you see, like, you're like, oh, he's a redneck, he's trashy, he's probably, like, super sloppy. He was the cleanest dude I ever lived with. Yeah. He was always, like, I think he owned, like, one fork, one knife, one plate, and one cup. And he would eat, and he would wash them, and he'd put them away. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah, that was definitely Bryce. And then, you know, that's how he was, and so that was his space. It was all of our spaces, but you know, it's his space, and so he expected you know things to be like that as well.
Yeah, he expected other people to do their job too.
Yeah, and so it definitely made me be more conscious of you know, putting my dishes away whenever I used them. Didn't always, but Bryce will let me know though. Yeah, he'll definitely let me know.
So we all lived on campus for a while. Then I graduated, but I was sticking around for a while because I was dating my wife. We were gonna get married, so we moved off campus. We lived in a house, and because we were off campus, we had a little more flexibility, and we had a little bit of nature in our backyard. There were some trees, there were some squirrels. Yeah. So Bryce took advantage.
Oh, definitely.
What did you first see? What do you remember him doing, and what did you think when you saw that?
So one thing I started seeing Bryce do was I think he already had a bow. He already had the bow made. I started seeing him, like, he would be in the backyard, like cutting down like branches, like like he would really analyze these branches.
Oh,
like these
yeah.
had to be pristine. Like he
be
wasn't just taking anything.
The right branch.
Yeah, like it had to be, not too wet, not too dry, like, the perfect thickness.
Yeah.
And then he'll just, cut the branches down, make them straight, smooth them out, and then just make arrows out of them.
And it's funny because we saw that on The Ultimate Fighter. We were watching some of his old episodes last night, but he's been doing that long before The Ultimate
Bryce
Fighter.
has been doing that.
Oh,
yeah. So when I saw that, I was just like,
That's Bryce.
Wow. There goes Bryce. Yeah, and those guys got to take a
love
look.
Tyler Diamond's reaction to it because he lives in rural California and he hunts and fishes. Like he's a redneck, as redneck as you can get for California.
Right.
But his comment, he's like, I'm country, I'm redneck, but Bryce is a whole nother level.
Right, a whole nother level.
That's his lifestyle.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I have some videos of Bryce, once he got his bows, and he made the arrowheads and everything, actually shooting at some squirrels.
Yeah.
And he made the bows pretty good. They would stay on a straight line.
Yeah.
Like he was very meticulous with it. And so when I saw that, I was just like, yo, this dude is on a whole nother level. I'm from the city. I've never seen anything like this. 100% city boy. So he was definitely the right person to introduce me to Arkansas.
That's true. You're from the city. You're from Miami.
Yeah.
I was from the suburbs, Tennessee. He's from the country. He grew up in the suburbs, but he's country. It's another level. I grew up in Tennessee. I've been around it. Bryce is a different level.
Yeah, no, a whole nother level.
And the thing is, it's not he doesn't do it just for fun, for target practice. He shoots a squirrel, he gets the squirrel, he skins it, and he eats it.
He actually eats it.
Because in his mind, he's like, you know what? I just saved $6. I don't have to go buy chicken at Walmart or whatever. I also remember, do you remember him and his relationship with the calf and how he would stockpile chicken and bring it?
Yes. I definitely remember that. He took advantage of the opportunity.
Oh, yeah. He was a student. He could go to the cafeteria. He could get as much food as he wanted. And he's like, as much food as I want? Are you sure?
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Loaf of bread, 6 chicken breasts. I'm going to bring this back, stick it in the fridge. I'm going to save $20 right there.
Right. It was all you could eat, and it was paid for. So, shoot, you might as well.
That right there is kind of the epitome of Bryce's style. It's about saving a penny any way you can and outsmarting the system and making it happen.
Right.
Because any way you can get free food or save on food, that's what he's gonna do.
And it wasn't Bryce being cheap or anything like that. It was just.
He is, but he's also.
But
he's
it's
smart.
who he is. Yeah, he's smart. He's just why not? He's very resourceful.
That's exactly the right question. Why not? If I can do it, why not?
Why not?
That's exactly.
Yep.
So. Nunchucks. When we lived in that house, oh my gosh, I can't remember the number of times I heard something breaks and shatters.
Yeah.
When did you first see Bryce using nunchucks?
I want to say he started with the foam nunchucks. Yeah, and he'd just be in the living room, just doing his nunchucks, doing his thing, and I'm just okay, that's I've never seen anything like that before either.
Yeah.
And so that was my first time seeing it, and I was interested. I'm just somebody I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
So I'm just sitting watching, how'd you get into this? Is this a thing that you do? And at the time he had just picked it up. He may have dabbled in it here and there, but he had just picked it up.
He picked it up quick.
He was doing it every day for hours, nonstop.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the reason he started, but when he went to New York to train with Al Iaquinta and Aljo, and he stayed with them for a month or so, he said Al would just walk through the house doing nunchucks, doing stuff, and there'd be a glass sitting on the table. He'd just be shatter it. So Raging Al Iaquinta, he's a really cool dude. He's crazy.
Wow.
Bryce fit in perfectly with it.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's the same style. So it was around that time Bryce started picking up nunchucks too. I don't know if he showed Al the nunchucks or Al showed him, but it was around then.
Well, shoot, that was the perfect thing for Bryce because he picked it up and he loved it and he got into it, and then he went from the foam nunchucks to the harder ones.
Yep. Oh,
and
that's when stuff started breaking.
That's when it got real.
That's when stuff started breaking.
Yeah.
So, the main thing I remember living with Bryce, he's a rapper.
Oh, yeah.
Bryce can rap, and he would write the most ridiculous, and he would think them out. Like he would write full verses. Like he would write full songs. I was like, oh my god.
Bryce had bars.
Yeah.
Bryce definitely had bars. Not a thing that too many people would know. But,
exactly.
You know, I mean, it's Thug Nasty right there.
Yep, that's awesome. So I've been living with Bryce for a couple of years, and honestly, like the whole time, I kept filming stuff. Like he would fight every few months. As an amateur, he fought pretty regularly. As a pro, he kind of started spacing it out so he could grow a lot. But so I filmed, I don't even know, 7 or 8 videos with him probably, and then end of 2014, early 2015, that's when he went pro. And that's where the Thug Nasty shirt. So that's when we got you that shirt. What do you remember about his like pro debut and everything? Because we were both there.
Yeah. So I guess just a little background about like even being introduced to fighting. Period. I never used to watch like UFC or MMA, any kind of MMA or any kind of fighting or anything until I met you guys, and of course living with Bryce, like you know that's what he eats, sleeps, breathes. So I got introduced to that, so it was pretty cool. Like you know, getting to see these fights and things like that. Going to Buffalo Wild Wings and watching them.
That's what we did.
Yeah, that was definitely our thing. But then also just getting into the scene and then actually getting to like witness my first UFC or not UFC, first MMA event live.
Yes.
That was awesome. And then it's my boy Bryce, you know, my roommate. Like it was amazing. That whole experience was just like, you know, it was definitely a good way to be introduced to the sport, and then into Bryce's life, you know. And so that whole thing, you know, you being a part of, you know, filming it and everything, and, you know, being backstage in the green room, is that what you call it? Yeah. All of that was cool, man. Being around like his team. It was a great experience. I was just taking it in, and you know, being an athlete myself, like loving the sports, loving competition. I was just like, yo, this is awesome. So that was really cool, and it was definitely a big deal. Something that Bryce, you know, worked hard for, and something that he deserved. And so he took the opportunity and did what he had to do with it. So it was
and
great.
I was gonna ask you, like, you'd been playing football your whole life. You knew like how much dedication it takes to get to the next level and like to get to the NFL and stuff. Like, what were you thinking as you were observing Bryce competing and like, you know, all the effort he was putting into it? Yeah.
So seeing Bryce and seeing the effort that he put into everything, his attention to detail, he did everything with a purpose. Nothing was just kind of done nonchalantly or, you know, and playing football at the collegiate level, at a high level. I mean, Harding was a high level football program. We won games and it was a great program.
You guys had like a big winning season.
Oh yeah,
like almost undefeated.
Yeah, we were for sure, and we probably lost at most, I think, 2 games. In the season, that was like our worst season. And so I mean, I've been around winners. And you know, guys who work to play a sport at a high level, professional level. So seeing Bryce, it wasn't much different than what I was seeing. Well, I wouldn't even say that, because there's guys that are talented and there's guys that are skilled. Bryce was skilled. He worked hard to get to where he is and to have the skill that he had. And so seeing that and seeing what he did every day to perfect his craft, I was just like, oh yeah, this dude is definitely destined to be something great and to play professionally. So that going to that debut and, you know, seeing all this hard work pay off, like literally being behind the scenes and seeing it every day. I was just like, I wasn't surprised. I was like, this is what he does every day. Nothing new.
It's interesting from your perspective, because I had kind of the opposite experience. Like, I'd been around MMA for a really long time. I'd been to lots of fights. I see them training all the time, but I was never like a athlete, an elite competitor myself. So you were coming at it from the perspective of like, you understood how much work goes into being an elite competitor, but not too much of an MMA knowledge. I was coming lots of MMA knowledge. So it was cool, both of our perspectives, kind of seeing it from both sides. But yeah, like as an amateur, I was seeing him just, no one could hang with him for more than a couple minutes. Like pretty much every amateur fight he would end, and they were 3-minute rounds. He would end them in the first round, like under 3 minutes. So when he went pro, he kept fighting the same way, and he would finish people like under 3 minutes in like a 5-minute round, and then eventually he went to the second round a couple times, and like, but he was finishing everybody, and I could see, like, in my mind, I thought that he was gonna be an elite dude in the UFC, but I wasn't sure because he wasn't at that level yet. He wasn't competing with those guys yet. As soon as he got there, though, we could see obviously he is.
Yeah, of course, for sure.
Yeah.
And and like you said, like you coming at it, somebody knowing the sport, and me just knowing sport, you know, knowing competition. Like, you know, I definitely knew that Bryce had it in him to be great, just because of what he did every day. And some people kind of get that, you know, confused and think, oh, you know, this guy's talented, he's going to be great. Yeah, but it's one thing to be talented and you know it and you don't work on your skill.
Yeah.
And then once you get to where these guys, you know, to the UFC, where these guys are training like every day, like hardcore, you know, like that. And that's another crazy thing too, is Bryce was also going to school at the same time.
Yeah.
So, you know, for, I guess, football players, for us college guys, you know, most guys who are at Division I programs or who, you know, they're going to the NFL, most of them take their spring semester off and they don't even take classes, or maybe might take one class just so they can stay eligible, because it takes a lot of work and dedication to be able to compete and put yourself at a level where it's one thing to make it, but to stay there.
Yeah.
And Bryce was able to take his classes and still, you know, compete at a high level and have himself ready. So it was very impressive. Yeah, I liked it. It definitely inspired me as well.
Is that the only live fight you got to go to? I don't remember his pro debut.
That was the first and the last.
That's so crazy.
So far.
We've tried to go to multiple, but they keep getting canceled and moved and everything. Yeah. But my one of my prized possessions, pro debut gloves, signed by Thug Nasty. You can see. So those are pretty cool. Bryce, I don't remember. It wasn't right after the fight, but he hung on to his pro debut gloves, and sometime long after that, he's like, "Here, kid, you can have." I was like, "Yes, they're hanging on my wall. I'm never taking those down except to show them." But I love that. And also, while we're talking about stuff, well, actually, this is a perfect example of Bryce. This jacket he received from the UFC in his fight kit at his first UFC fight week. He wore it to the octagon for his UFC debut, and to me, that's pretty cool. I would frame it. I would do something cool with it because it's awesome. All right, I was at Bryce's house a few weeks ago. We were filming for Homegrown Fighter, and he had a piece of machinery that he was working on, and he had to prop it up on a cinder block. But it's metal, and he didn't want the metal part of it to get worn down by the cinder block. So he's like, "Well, I need something to pad it with. What should I use?" This jacket. That was his pro debut, UFC debut jacket. He could probably sign it and sell it for $1,500 or something. It was wadded up and shoved under this piece of machinery being squashed. I found it. I was like, no, come on. And I was asking him about. He's like, oh, you can have it if you want. I was like, yes.
Right.
So snagged that. But that's the perfect. I mean, that's the perfect example of Bryce. He just doesn't care.
Literally just a Bryce thing, man.
Yes.
There's some things that you might not believe if the story was just told to you, but if you knew Bryce, you'd be like, okay, yeah.
Like choking a deer to death.
Yeah.
I know there's the people out there who would believe anything they hear because they're stupid.
Right.
There's the people out there who won't believe it because they actually have some knowledge about deer, and it seems impossible that you would sneak up on a deer and choke it out. Right. But then there's the tier of people who know Bryce on an intimate level. Right. We know just how he is, and we know Rolly, his coach, who was there with him when it happened. And it's not impossible for me to believe he shot at a deer. The deer bedded down and slept. He snuck up on it, and he choked that thing to death.
Choked it.
He just held it, and then Rolly he can confirm the story. I don't have any issue believing it. I know some people do, but that's Bryce.
I wasn't there, but I know if Bryce told it, then it happened. Because his life is crazy enough that he doesn't have to pad anything.
Yes, exactly.
It just is what it is.
I can't tell you the number of times I've received a call from Bryce man, you won't believe what just happened. I'm like, I wouldn't if it wasn't you.
Right.
There's some stories I wish I could tell, but legally probably shouldn't.
Yeah.
But moving on, so
oh gosh,
man, just choking a deer. That's Bryce. Let's see. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about he made it to the UFC. He had his pro debut. He went on The Ultimate Fighter, and I wanted to be out there filming so bad, but obviously it's locked down. I couldn't be. But his UFC debut, I got to be backstage filming. I've got to film him, as he's built up to different fights. It's been interesting to see our background knowledge. We know how good Bryce is, but the rest of the world, he has to prove himself to people for them to
right.
And at his first few UFC fights, he was the underdog. He was consistently the underdog his first three. And now, and it's been good, I think, because he likes being the underdog. He likes people questioning him. He likes people saying, you can't be good out of Arkansas.
Because that fuels him.
He's going to disprove it. So, and And now he's actually starting to be recognized a little bit, and it's kind of shifting the other way. From a competitor's mentality, what do you think that's like, being the underdog and then shifting, like kind of being proved a little bit?
So when you first get really anywhere, and if you're a humble guy like Bryce, you're going to come in, you're going to know, like, these guys have been here. You're going to respect, the game. You're going to respect, the veterans that have been there. And, you're just going to kind of come in, prove yourself, make a name for yourself, and let your fighting, your athleticism do the talking for you. So, people not knowing, who Bryce is and kind of saying these different things about him living with himself every day and knowing the work that he puts in, and being around other competitors, he knows where he is. So it's nothing for him to just keep his mouth closed and be like, all right, cool, you'll see, I don't have to say anything. And that fuels him, because he's like, I want to shut you up. Like, I'm a competitor, I want you, like, please talk trash so I can shut you up. And then you become a fan at that point.
Exactly.
And so that's where Bryce is, and that's where he's been, even just getting into professional fighting. And now that he's into the UFC, he's making that transition again, because once you get to a point where you are who you are, and everyone knows who you are, then it's just kind of like, you still don't have to say much, but you can kind of open your mouth a little bit, be a little bit more confident, because you can back it up, and everybody knows you can back it up at this point. And you got people who's got your back. So I think that's where Bryce is now. Is he's kind of like, in a position where he's respecting the UFC, he's respecting the game. He's been to different camps. He's rolled with different people, so he knows where he is. And not saying that he's getting comfortable, but he's realizing more and more people are realizing, who he is and where he is. So he's gaining that respect. So now Bryce is like, all right, he's demanding the respect that he deserves.
I think after his last fight, when he in December he fought Matt Sales, he got the second twister in UFC history. He finished it. I know that moment for him was like so sweet, because he's finished, I don't even know, probably 20 fights or so in his career, amateur and pro, and he was just searching for that first UFC finish. It took 3 fights, but he got it. I've never seen him have such a big reaction after finishing a fight as I did right then, because he's like, I finished, I got the win and the finish in the UFC, and he didn't know at that point it was huge, but he didn't know at that point he was gonna get submission of the year and like all this other stuff. He just knew, like, he finished somebody, he finished the fight in the UFC, and that, like, just energy flowing out of him, it's like the biggest reaction I've seen. When
I mean, as an athlete, man, when you work really hard at something, and what you worked on and what you drill actually, like, comes to, and you actually prove it to yourself and to everyone else, it's just like, man, like, it's an emotional, time and an emotional experience, because, like, I worked hard for this and I got it. Like, anybody who's worked hard for anything, they know the feeling. It's not that much different from an athlete, working hard, working on a submission that's only been done once ever in history of a professional sport. And doing that it's crazy. You get your name, in the record books forever. Forever. So it's awesome. And this is just the beginning for Bryce, and it's crazy, because being who Bryce is, he's gonna find other ways to put his name in the history books and be the first guy to finish something or do something some way. Or even come up with his own. I wouldn't be surprised for Bryce to come up with his own finish. He's probably got some
submissions we've never even seen before. I don't put that past him. What do you think shifts? Is it hard as a competitor when people start believing in you instead of doubting you? Like, what changes?
It's definitely it's a different pressure. But certain athletes, certain competitors respond to that pressure differently. Some people they thrive off of that pressure. It's like, everybody, all eyes are on me, so I can't mess up. So they're like super focused, super like laser focused on what they're doing, and they get it done. And especially when you're on a platform like Bryce is, and all eyes are on you, like, there's not much room for error. You know what I'm saying? Like, you mess up, everybody's gonna see it. So that drives some guys. Versus when you're at a position where nobody really knows who you are, or just like your close friends and family. For some people, it's more fun that way, because it's just like, I'm just gonna get out there, do what I do, have fun, because it's just what I love to do.
Yeah.
And then these people that support me are going to support me regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so you kind of have more fun, and more people find more success that way when there isn't that much pressure.
Right.
Because they kind of just get out there, do what they do. Being that they're so skilled, they can, they can maneuver around trying something new, or maybe just kind of being loose and being able to react a lot faster.
Yeah.
When we're talking about like fighting or things like that. So it really just depends on the athlete. But a true competitor, they thrive off of that pressure. They thrive off of the pressure because they know, all eyes are on them, and it's a name that you got to hold up for yourself and for your family.
And it's not like going into, so he's fighting Charles Rosa and he's the slight favorite. It's not like he's a massive favorite. It's not like a minus 800 like favorite. It's like, it's pretty close. And there's a lot of people that think Charles Rosa is going to win. He's got his fans. He's got people who believe in him too. But it's cool seeing Bryce. Like, there's been something in him leading into this fight with Charles Rosa that, like, Rosa's called him out, and he's talking trash on Twitter. Like, he's tagging him and stuff and saying, like, I'm going to rip his arm off. I'm going to put him, I'll give him a camo cast to wear because, like, he wants camo shorts. Like, he's saying a lot of stuff, and Bryce, like,
poor guy.
Bryce is, he's like, I want to hurt him. He's like, if he didn't say anything, I don't care. I'll go in there and try to win. But he said this, no, I'm going to hurt him. I'm going to show him, like, so he's determined. I've never really seen that much, like, fire in Bryce wanting to, like, to beat someone and to, like, hurt somebody.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, Bryce definitely has controlled aggression. But, I mean, you get a guy that's as competitive as Bryce is, and you start talking trash and talking down about his game, it's personal. Yeah, you got to take it personal at that point.
And he does. And a lot of people in the MMA community, they've seen, like, Habib, how he takes things personally. Like, when Conor was talking about his religion, his family, whatever. Bryce is a lot of the same. Like, he takes stuff personally. It's not just words on a screen to him. He's like, you're talking about my state or my family, like, my background, talking about me. He's like, that's personal. I don't care if your manager tweeted it out. It's still personal. Like, it doesn't matter.
It's still a personal attack. At that point, now it's just like mano a mano. We got to go at it. It's not just business at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing I wanted to talk about a little bit, you've seen it a little bit because you've been around. I've seen it quite a bit as I've had the relationship with Bryce and his team over the years. But a lot of people say he needs to move to a big camp somewhere to be good and move to a mega camp. But Bryce has this relationship with his coaches that's, like, it's really hard to get. Like, if you just walk into a gym somewhere as a talented fighter and there's 50 other talented fighters on the mat, who are you? But when, like, Bryce has had his head coach, Rolly, he's his dad, basically, for, like, one of a better term. Like, it's his dad. And so, like, the relationship they have, Willie can say some code that no one else would have any idea what they're saying, but Bryce, to him, it triggers. He's like, it's been ingrained in him. He knows what he's talking about, and he knows that Willie has nothing but Bryce's best interests in mind. So he completely trusts anything Willie says. Like, he knows Willie is thinking about, like, who Bryce is, what his style is, where he's at mentally, and telling him what he needs to hear. And same with Rolly. Rolly was on The Ultimate Fighter. He was a UFC fighter, and he's been coaching Bryce for like 7 or 8 years as well, alongside Rolly and alongside Willie. Bryce trusts Rolly just the same. Like, these guys have poured into him. They know who he is. They have that deep relationship. If he were to go off to another gym somewhere, like, you wouldn't find that. It would take you years, and you'd never get to the point you're at now.
Exactly. And what the big difference is, let's just say Bryce coming into somebody else's camp or, somebody else coaching him, starting where he is now. Like, Bryce is a professional at this point. So, there's only... Of course, professionals still grow, and there's a lot, there's a lot that they can still achieve. But when you're starting from the beginning, like the inception, then it's a completely different, relationship. It's a completely different coaching. Because it's not just, I know, what this guy can do. We're just gonna perfect that. It's like, I'm gonna teach you the basics, and that foundation is what's gonna propel you, for the rest of your career.
That's a really specific thing I wanted to talk about too, because I've heard from pretty much all of Bryce's coaches that when he started, he was not good. Like, he had some wrestling background. He had some backyard fights, but, like, he got submitted over and over and over. Like, he was, like, small guys could, like, if they knew any jiu-jitsu, like, he couldn't do much. He could power out of something maybe, but, like, he wasn't good. He wasn't skilled, like you were saying earlier. And they poured into him. They showed him the basics. And at that point, no one could have known, oh, he's going to be a world-class,
Right.
potentially like UFC contender, UFC champion. They're like, he's a kid who like likes to wrestle
Right.
and he can throw a punch maybe. Like, let's just show him how to do some stuff. But then, you know, a few fights down the road, okay, he's doing all right. He's
Right.
sticking with it. A few more fights, man, he's actually getting pretty good. He listened to
Yeah.
all the stuff I've told him and he's
Right.
using it now.
That's it. You said it
Yes.
right there. He's listening. Bryce is coachable.
Yes.
And that's the difference between, you know, really elite athletes and guys who, you know, are pretty good, but that's as far as they're going to get.
Yeah.
Bryce is extremely coachable no matter who you are.
Yeah.
No matter who you are. Like,
Yeah.
come on, the guy learned something off of YouTube.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he's extremely
Granted, it was
coachable.
Eddie Bravo teaching it, but he still learned it off YouTube.
Yeah. I mean, some people, you know, they'll be like, oh, well, whatever. Like, my coach didn't teach me that way, or I didn't learn that from, you know, my coach. But, like, Bryce will learn from anybody.
That's a good point. I have heard like boxers and different competitors say like when someone's trying to teach them something, say, no, my coach wants me to do it this way, or I've learned it this way, I don't want to change. Bryce has never had that for a second. He will go like, he might be taught something one way, but his coaches, like the relationship that they have with him, they know that they don't want to change who he is or how he does things. They just want to add to it.
Right.
Like Matt Hamilton, one of his coaches at Westside, was talking the other day about not wanting to change the formula, not wanting to stir the pot too much. Just like add a little bit, just give some guidance.
Right.
He knows what he does. He knows what he does well. He's doing it. Just like guide him along a little bit. But he's also like, if he comes across someone, he's like, hey, I do it completely differently. Check this out. He's gonna absorb that and be like, oh, I'm gonna try that. See if that works for me. Like I'll change completely.
That's it. Because
He's adaptable.
If it works, definitely you got to be adaptable, man. Especially in a sport that's always changing, you know. And people are finding. I mean, it's been around for a long time. It's a gladiator sport.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Like
so
the roots of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's developed.
Fighting's
a lot.
existed forever.
Exactly. So you've got to definitely be elite. You definitely got to be able to, you know, adapt and be willing to learn from anybody because you don't know everything.
Yeah.
Nobody knows everything.
Yeah.
You know?
MMA's at a level now. Everyone is good at everything. So you have to find the little ways that can set you apart and do things differently, things people haven't seen before, or just being really, really good at doing something a certain way. Even if they've seen it 1,000 times, you do it better.
Exactly.
That's how you win.
Exactly.
And keep winning.
Yeah.
Work
on those strengths, man.
So to me, like I met Bryce in his like 7th or 8th amateur fight. It was 7 or 8 years ago, and man, just to see how far he's come. I think he was a blue belt at the time. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu now. He's got, man, just his skills, his striking, everything he does is so good. His mentality too. He's learning a lot. Every time he's in the octagon, he's getting that experience and just filing it away. And to me, like, I 100% believe he can be UFC champion. I have no doubt. I think he'll be in the top 10 couple of fights. Like, sure, there are people out there who can beat him. He's not unbeatable.
Right.
But he's also, I don't think there's anyone that he can't beat either. So it comes down to just, you know, if he keeps doing what he's doing and stays focused like he has for so long, I think he'll be champion.
Yeah, I believe so too. And Bryce is not somebody who's ahead of himself and who like takes all the hype that people say and just kind of like, you know,
He's
like
the
takes that in.
opposite.
Yeah, no. And Bryce has a good filter because there's some people who get, you know, big headed and hear all these things from other people, but those people don't really, you know, they don't know the sport like you do.
Right.
They don't know what goes into it like you do. So they really don't know what they're talking about. They just see, oh, he performed really well. I've never seen nothing like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Bryce has a filter. He's like, you know, I appreciate it, thanks, but he's very level-headed, and he knows, you know, he's not going to bite off more than he could chew. He's not going to turn down anything.
Right.
If you challenge him, he's going to accept the challenge. But that's because he's willing to learn and to challenge himself.
Yes.
So.
And I'm definitely not an expert, but I've been around. I've seen the sport for a long time. I've seen different athletes rise and fall. But what I know very well is Bryce, like as a person and his mentality and just who he is, and he's got everything you need to be a champion.
Right.
Like he's got it. So.
That's it. Bryce is, man. It's been great knowing Bryce. It's been great, you know, being introduced to the sport through such like elite talent and skill
it's
and
cool.
dedication, like seeing it behind the scenes, because not too many people get to, you know, be around like people who are great at what they do, like whether it be videography and photography or, you know, running a business or just being an athlete, to see what goes, you know, into their craft every single day, like every day. it's crazy. And the attention to detail and just everything done with a purpose.
Yeah.
Like, that's 100% Bryce. And
It
that's what
is.
leads me to believe, like, there's no stopping Bryce. Like,
Yeah.
whatever he puts his mind to, if he says he's going to be a professional fighter, he's going to do it, which we've seen. If he says he's going to fight in the UFC, he's going to do it, which we've seen. If he says he's going to be a champion, he's going to do it, which we will see.
Yeah.
So
think
I
so,
believe
too.
it 100%. It's
Yeah.
not a matter
Yeah.
of if, but when.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.